And welcome. So thanks for spending this morning with me. And so if we've not met before, I'm Steve. I am a teaching and learning coordinator at CAMI. We just changed our titles. And so we used to be called Teacher Success Champions. Now we're teaching and learning. So what I get to do is I get to be out in the streets virtually, sometimes in person, really helping teachers, educators, administrators, instructional coaches with CAMI. I support the entire West Coast, and I am a teacher. And so in my previous life, I did teach high school level social studies. I taught government economics as well as world history. I'm not terribly far from you. I'm out in the Modesto area. I do sneak out to your neck of the woods during this time when it gets too hot in the Central Valley. And so, again, not terribly far from you. And currently I am a university supervisor at Stanislaus State. I'm out in the streets with our pre-service teachers, with our student teachers, supporting them and getting their feet wet, so to speak, as they start the teaching profession. And I'm also in the adult ed space. So I'm currently still teaching, still using CAMI. And so again, just happy to be here. We're not going to take the full 2 hours here, but what we will do is we'll kind of dive in. This session I do somewhat frequently, and this session on the Jigsaw method, jigsawing your classroom together, and how CAMI can serve as an ally to make all that happen. And again, I will be dropping in the sign-up sheet. So kind of just seeing people pop in, which is A-okay. So let's dive in. Let's kind of handle maybe perhaps some housekeeping kind of items. This one pager here, I will share out with you in just a bit. But this is the resource that you'll have. Know that within this resource, there are some, more like logistical things, like kind of like where CAMI lives. I do understand that you all are using Google Classroom, so we will spend some time talking about that. And CAMI is a Google Chrome extension, and so we'll spend some time on that in a bit as well. You will have all of my contact info, all of the learning, all of me coming in like this virtual. CAMI doesn't charge. It's all free. It's all unlimited, large or small. So anytime you need support within the learning, feel free to reach out to me. So first thing on our agenda here is the sign-in sheet, right? I've dropped that in a few different times. I'll do that one more time, but as people pop in, I don't mind wearing all the hats and dropping that in the chat throughout. And the next piece is what is, and we all might see this term. Maybe we've come across this at conferences. It does get touched on in teacher prep programs. So just curious, like when we see this term jigsaw in the education context, like the jigsaw method, what does that mean? So let's do a little bit of checking prior knowledge in the chat, if you could. What is jigsaw to your understanding? And go ahead and drop that in the chat. We'll kind of have a brief conversation before we dive in to how CAMI can be applied to jigsaw. Okay, cool. I don't know is a completely fine answer, right? Like if you're like, I've never even heard of this, don't know really, like never really been exposed to it. Eva here, a task gets broken up in a group. Cool. Yes, that's an appropriate way to think about it. Students get broken up into groups. Marilyn says students are given different tasks and come back and share their work with the group. So yes and yes. Chloe, collaboration. Brian, tasks that are broken up into chunks for groups to accomplish. Yep, breaking parts apart. Absolutely. Chopping things up into smaller chunks, diverse pieces. Yes. So I think we need some notes here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a new tab. If you don't know this, if you open up a new tab and you type in cami.new, the same way that you do docs.new, it'll give you a fresh CAMI doc for moments like this. Because as teachers, we got to pivot. And so here's a great way. Going to ask me to save in my drive. Yep, there it goes. This is a great way to use CAMI, just like the ideation part of it, brainstorming, right? And so with respect to Jigsaw, I think like one thing that we have is, in groups. So like we will be looking at, let me change the color here. We will be looking at getting students in groups, but oftentimes it's how, What are the logistics? We'll talk about that because there's a classroom management like component to all this as well. The other thing is the collaboration. So students collaborating in those groups. And so setting up tasks to ask students to, break it up. And when I say break it up, what I mean is that vocab term, that concept, that maybe that, that part of the unit that like you're really trying to narrow things down. And so the other thing I would kind of add is student, and maybe this is obvious, but student centered. So this is very much like it could be incorporated into like a blended learning type of environment, right? Where the teacher's not up on the stage talking for 50 minutes while students are taking notes. This is allowing students to use their own inquiry, their own previous life experiences. And for years, students have been, like historically speaking, they have been the spectators in the classroom, right? So if you think about a football game, they've been in the audience, they're just observing. What this aims to do is try to place them from being in the stands to being on the field, to actively showing ownership and showing that responsibility and using their own inquiry and their critical thinking skills and their collaborative skills to really be the ones that are owning the learning. And so that, for me, that is something that I strive to do still in the classrooms that I sit in. And so all of this is good. It's student centeredness. It's breaking up tasks. And one thing that someone mentioned is share out. That's a big part of this, share out to the class. But here's the thing, and here's where maybe I'm going to challenge you a little bit. If we're going to have students do something and learn something and like take just one part of it and be the experts on it, why are they only sharing it out to the class? Think about that for a moment. Why can't they be sharing out their findings to a different class, to the community, to perhaps stakeholders that have a little bit more power position to make change depending on what you're doing, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can tackle and think about this. But I just wanted to drop in these notes, these ideas. We may reference back to this in a bit. But here's my one pager. And so we kind of talked about what is Jigsaw. The common kind of thing here, let me get my markup tool here. I'm going to do my freehand highlighter, is building of the teams, right? So the team building. My students used to be chunked up into, in fours, like the desks would be facing each other. You kind of get how that would look. But it's important that we find the right procedures, the right methods to get students grouped in and make it very obvious and have that clarity in the classroom. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And this I love doing this session in person. Virtually, this gets a little bit of, there's a challenge with it. But I'm going to show you the rest of my one pager. I'm going to share this out with you in a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you into groups right away. So if I were to keep scrolling on my Jigsaw, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get each person 4 people per page. So think of this, it's like a slide deck, right? So this first team right here, give it team names. Sometimes I would allow my students to pick their own names. We kind of do that like first week of school. But this one, I kind of front loaded this for you. So this first group, this team name is Like Blue. This next one is Clever Cats, the Rat Pack. I think I have somewhere between 12 and 13 groups. How many? We have like what, 20 something odd people here? Plenty of room. So what I'm going to ask you to do, is you're going to pick a group, and we may have to shuffle things around. This is a great way. Like I'm going to share this with you collaboratively. So everyone's going to have access to this. And all you're going to do is be like, oh, I want to be in Light Blue, but pick which part of the group do you want to be. Are you going to do political? Then you just type it in there. Or you can do cultural. And I know you don't know what that means yet, right? We haven't gotten there yet. But you're just going to pick what responsibility. Do you want the cultural responsibility, the social, the economic, the political? And you're going to drop this in. Now, I know you're kind of looking at this and you're like, Steve, this is really like just your own content area. Think about the strategy here and not so much that it says political or cultural, right? You do it in a wide range of ways. So really, at this point, we're talking about the strategy, the classroom management strategy. And so I'm going to give this to you in a bit. Pick which team you want to get into. Okay. We may have to move some people around, and that's A-okay. And use the text box tool. So you'll click on text box and then click on the page and then go ahead and type, right? Go ahead and type. So what I'm going to do, I can come up here to the top right and see that shared icon right here in Cami. Once you have something in Cami, and don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get files into Cami. We will do that. When I hit share, I can copy this. There's also a QR code option. But before I share it out with you, I only want you to have the text box tool to not overwhelm you if this is your first time learning Cami. Same thing goes for students, where anyone with the link is an editor, but I have this button right here called feature control. I get to pick which Cami tools I want you to have right now. So imagine that with students, right? So I can turn everything off. I'm only going to, the select tool's fine, but I'm only going to give you the text box because that's all I need you doing. If you're to collaborate with students, you can also turn off copy and paste. So that way students aren't copying and pasting in and out of that document. Cool. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to go ahead and copy this in the chat. So feel free to click on that link in the chat. It'll take you to this document. You'll have to do your Google single sign-on and then scroll past page 1. And please drop in your name in either the pink, yellow, orange, gray box. Only one person per box though, please. And only 4 people per group. If you do have questions, please, 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 please let me know. Oh, I am displaying the text on my shared screen as well, if that's at all helpful. Here we go. Like Lou, we got Amy, got Marilyn. Awesome. Getting everyone that time. No worries if you're having technical difficulties. We have 2 hours. I'm just kidding. We're not going to take 2 hours. But I'm in no rush here. I just want to make sure that you all are kind of experiencing Cami in this way, in this Jigsaw context. We will make it work. No worries. So again, if we could, it's best if we spread out across groups. So like if you see someone's name in one of the boxes, if you can move your name into a different one. You can drag and drop annotations across pages though. So like if my name was here, I'm like, oh, there's 3 people already here. I can simply drag and drop across, boom, and put myself here. Yep, cool, cool, cool. And then I guess on the other side of things, like if you feel that you've put your name, if you put your name somewhere and you're by yourself, maybe drag and drop it into a group that has someone in it, right? Yeah, because this will not, you can't Jigsaw by yourself. That's something that would be quite challenging. Kind of give us a few more moments here. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, cool. Sorry, my 7-year-old is not back at school yet, so she's trying to pop in. She loves herself a camera. Okay, so yeah, so maybe some folks are trying to drop their names in here, and so we have we're lost. So here's a group, right? Again, maybe Chloe, maybe we move into the political area. That'd be cool. Maybe Katrina can move into the political one up here on light blue. Yeah, so right now what we're doing is this experience here. Megan brings up a good question. This is a collaborative environment, right? And so when you're working, and I do see a hand, but I want to address this first. What I can do as a teacher, I can't move. So that's something that Cami is working on at the moment, is teacher ability to move when needed. Because I do see that as being a need. I can hover over and delete any annotations, which that's fine for things that are like not appropriate, right? Like if someone puts something you don't want on there at all, you can quickly remove it and delete it if you wish. So that's something you can't do at the moment, but that is feedback that I will deliver out to the engineers, though they've heard that feedback before. So we're going to continue to reinforce that. I do see a hand raised as well, though.
I couldn't find in mine because I in my cell phone, but I redo it again.
Yeah. So if you are on a cell phone, I wouldn't participate on a cell phone. That can be quite challenging. Now, if you're on an iPad, that would work fine. But if you're on a cell phone, that's okay.
Yeah, I just out of town and I forgot my charger at home. That's why. But
no worries. This is getting recorded, so you can certainly watch it anytime afterwards. So
okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Megan, I hope that answers that question of like, you can't really move. So that's why you have to have students themselves move like into the right place. You'll also find though too that students they won't be able to manipulate annotations that are not their own. So I see Elizabeth here in the economic box, right? Elizabeth would be able to move her own annotations. But if Elizabeth were to go and try to mess with Amy's, that wouldn't happen, right? And that's by design. So students aren't going to be able to like mess each other up in that regard, if that makes sense. Okay, cool. So we're in groups, right? We're ready to go. Look at Joe getting fancy. Like we were saying, Joe. So what we're going to do next? So we built teams. So I'm going to show you a framework that I use in the classroom. Again, some of you be like, oh, that's just for social studies, but it can be applied across many different, almost any different content area. And so across many different subjects. So this framework called the 4 worlds. This is the framework that was developed out here in California. It's something I show very often. I'm a huge advocate for the work that they're doing out of USC Calais. And so just to show you, I'm going to kind of, before I click on this link, and I will drop this link in the chat, I kind of want to show you what the 4 worlds looks like. So the 4 worlds is where you have a grouping of 4 students, like we try to establish here. And each student is in charge of their own world, depending on what the topic is. So in the center, it does look like Freyr, right? In the center, there will be some sort of prompt, right? And so that prompt might be a term. It might be an image. It might be, and let me show you, come up here. It might be an excerpt, right? So think of like ELA. Think of like elementary with understanding maybe like, you know, something that you all are reading in a book, let's say. Think about math in terms of what is the significance? How does this math concept impact our various different worlds? So one student may look at this excerpt here and be like, okay, how does this impact the political world? And then the next student next to them, how does this impact the economic world? And the initial stage here is very much independent work. So it really not differentiates, it scaffolds us into a high level of collaboration. But the initial stage is for students to work independently if they're all in the same document like this. And you for sure can do this on paper. And I used to do the same thing. But you know, Cami serves as a great ally here with respect to accessibility. And I can show you that in a bit. So for example, like if you have students working here, they can then use the built-in dictionary to help them work through whatever excerpt that is, right? And the fact that our dictionary does get supported in Spanish as well, huge need, right? Huge need. And so just know that that's there, though the text has to be in that said language though. So the initial stage here, what I'm going to have you do is think of this just like your own box of ideation. Get all of your thoughts out there. So depending on what topic you have, you're going to dive into whatever world you signed up for. So when I click on the 4 worlds link in our agenda, that's going to take us here. And I'm going to drop this in the chat. I can see someone's already, we have like a go-getter. Look at Marilyn. She's like, she's ready, right? And so you'll notice though, if you drop into this link initially, you don't have any of the Cami tools. Want to know why? I want to make sure you understand first, right? And so think about that as a procedure for your students. You can turn off all the Cami tools before you let them cut loose on something, right? So if you'll notice there's a little comment right here. So you can create a Cami comment by going to the comment tool anywhere and then put that team name. So I'm kind of showing you how to build this out, right? Putting that team name. Like Glue is here, Clever Cats. It's the same names as we have here. Okay. Let me go ahead and drop this in the chat because I'm sure that's going to be helpful for some of you. There we go. So that is 4 worlds template. Don't worry, I will send out all these resources made for you in different iterations. So I won't have the topics here. I'll have kind of the world. But remember, you can also like replace. It doesn't have to be cultural. It can be whatever it is you want them to focus in on. And we'll kind of talk about that in a bit. So you're going to find, so mine over here, I'm in Clever Cats, the political world, and I put up topics that are relevant to teachers, or at least I tried. So Clever Cats, standardized testing. So I'm going to drop over here. I'm going to drop in, maybe using the text box tool. Like, okay, cool. I'm going to put my ideas of how standardized testing impacts the political world. if you are struggling, and sometimes students struggle, I'm like, I don't know where to begin. The framework provides, and it's at the very bottom of this document here. It's at the very bottom. I give this as a cheat sheet for my students. So if they're struggling, like, I don't even know what you're talking about when you say social world. Well, they can go to the social column and it gives them ideas on, like, is it impact classes, upper, middle, lower class? What about privilege versus positions in our society? Mobility, different roles, demographics. Students, and I've seen this with teachers too, they struggle with social and cultural and knowing the differences there. So feel free to use this as a cheat sheet as well. Okay, I'm going to give you all the tools here. I'm done rambling here. So I'm going to go all on. Cool. You should now see the Kami tools appear live for you within seconds. So drop the link one more time. Go ahead and do that independent work, those initial ideas in your own particular world. I'll give us some time here. Yeah, we have a question, Marilyn? Or we might have our hand raised on accident. I do that all the time.
Oh, no, I do. Can you clarify the difference between a cultural and social world?
Yeah. So let me go back down to this cheat sheet here. So social world, and you kind of see it here, like what is happening in terms of like our society and perhaps our positions, right? So there's a difference between like upper and lower class and where we fit all in and how that gets impacted versus cultural. That more leans into like belief systems, different, like maybe like sacred texts, like, like, again, going back to the religious piece, rituals, different like things that we do on the daily, our daily lives, our customs, our traditions, the language that we speak. There is a difference between like the cultural elements in that regard versus our status within society. And there could be some crossover, but differentiating those two is really good for students with respect to like the critical thinking and breaking apart of content. I hope that answers that. Kyle?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So just a quick question. At the bottom, the cheat sheet. So it looks like politics, economics, social, those are for this area content, correct?
Yes. So this is for this particular activity.
But
Yeah.
do we have to create our own cheat sheet for a different area content, like vocational education, for example?
Okay. So if that was something like, if you had an idea of how to jigsaw, if you send me an email, my team can build it out for you if that's something that you're that you're looking for. Yeah. So all of the support from my team, we're building resources all the time. We're trying to lean into the pedagogy, right? Like, I'm not your vendor of like tool by tool. We're the teaching and learning here at Kami. So if you have an idea and you want us to build something out for you, like we can do that. And again, we don't charge at all for any of those services.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And so, yeah, so I kind of get that question a lot when I do this particular session, because like, Steve, it's so social studies centric. I'm like, yeah, but we can build stuff out for you. And also, like, we're really leaning into the strategy here, right? Like, I showed you logistically how to get students in different groups, how to really start with, okay, so we already have a lot of good things here. So bullying, we have bullying here. We have somebody on the left, anti-bullying policy, like how it impacts policy, nonprofit legal advocacy, like all this work is being done because of this problem that we have. Absolutely. Megan, I see you in the chat. Is there a way for us to customize if we want? So I'm assuming you're talking about like how to do it within Kami itself. Is that the question? Oh, the cheat sheet. So this is a PDF. So if it was originally a PDF. Yeah. So this could be something that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a possibility in a bit. But what happens is when Kami pulls in things, it basically makes it a PDF and flattens it. If it was already a PDF, you can't really edit unless you want to do something like in Adobe and kind of mess with that. If you have resources in a Google slide, so you know that in Google Slides, you can edit, right? You can edit, and then at the top of your Google slide, you're going to have a Kami button at the top. So you can edit on the Google slide, on the Google side of things, and then open with Kami, and then it's going to convert it. Oops. And then it's going to convert it here to make it a Kami, right? Now, with respect to your specific question of, hey, I want the cheat sheet, I want something like this. I want to customize this out. If you build it out in a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, you can do that. Also know, if I click on the Kami Chrome extension, if you go to our library, so our library can be found, well, right here. We do have rubric templates, which may or may not be appropriate for this. But you can open one of these, customize it out, and then use it that way. We're getting all the questions coming in. I love it. So what are we looking? Started as a slide present. Yes. So what you were looking at started out as a slide presentation. Correct. So when you're looking at this, well, this pulled from the Kami library. And let me take a quick sidebar on that. So if it is a slide deck, you can do it that way. Or if you go to the Kami library, what I did is I went to Frayer in the library. Elizabeth, I'm coming. Just give me 1 second. When you open up a template in Kami and you want to like build a Jigsaw kind of environment, what you can do is when you're looking at this, you can take this to split and merge. For you, you're probably on the old Kami at the moment. So if you hit the little menu icon at the top right, and what you can do in split and merge, continue, next. Cool. You're going to build out like you want multiple different pages. The way I built out the one that you're on currently is there's a clone button. So you can make various different copies. If the original one has annotations already built and you copy it, those annotations will carry over into the duplicates. So just know that that is available and that is an option. And I have way too many tabs open. It's freaking me out. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. What do you got?
Hi, I got a couple questions. So, is there a way as a teacher that we can go back and say, like, somebody else is typing in somebody's box? Do I know who's typing that? Is their name show up in there? So I have economic world. Is my name, can you see that I typed that under economic world for technology and education?
Yes. Okay. So this is cool. I'm going to show you. When I hover over this annotation right here, see how it pops up, this little action bar. And then if I hover over that initial, it shows your name.
Perfect. So I know who's typing what in every box.
Yes. And so that's an excellent point from a classroom management standpoint. And I've mentioned before, as a teacher, I can delete any annotation on the fly. So that's important. But also if there's a toggle sidebar up here.
Yeah.
And what that does, once you toggle this over, there's a little bubble icon like comic book. You click on that, that's your annotation summary. So it gives you a breakdown of all annotations on the document, who made the annotation, what time they made it, their name, what page. So if I'm like, oh, what's going on page 3? Click on that, boom, it takes me to page 3. Page 9, boom. So it's another way to track students to make, because we all know how kids are. I know what they're doing or maybe not doing, right? So this is just another layer to the classroom management piece.
Perfect. Second question, sorry. Can you show us how to turn on and off the students? So I've never used Kami for students before. So how was I able to how were you able to control that, turn on and off the typing stuff for the students' document?
Yeah, so this situation right now is I went up here, I went to share, I copied the link. In your case, you can just drop that at the top of like a Google Classroom, like in your materials, but it does default to anyone with the link as an editor, and the feature control button is what you're looking for.
Okay.
Now you only get the feature control if you're the owner of the document. So students won't be able to manipulate it, only you will be able to.
And I can do that as long as the kids are in my document. I can manipulate, turn things on and off for them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Marilyn, what do you got?
All right, a couple of questions. When I put the document in Google Classroom, do I remain the owner? So let's say I assign it to individual students.
Okay, let's talk about that. So when you assign in Google Classroom, here's what's cool. So imagine we have this document right here, and I know we've already started working on it, but as an example, see this little, it's like a little page file. Now, keep in mind that my Kami probably looks a little different than your Kami right now. Salinas they'll get the new Kami turned on soon, if you don't have it already. So yours is in a slightly different place. But when I click on this little page icon, I can create the assignment from right here. So it'll give you, if I want to roll this out into Google Classroom, but making an assignment, give it a title. Notice it attached the file for me. So gone are the days that you're like, girl, I don't know where I put this document in my drive. Like, I don't know where it's at. If you're already looking at Kami, you assign it this way, boom, it's done. Now, this is the collaborative assignment. So I can make one shared copy that'll make it collaborative, but still give them points. Or you can make individual copy. You can pick which class you want it in. It is multi-select here in Classroom. Give it however many points, due date, do the thing, put it in a topic. Sure. And then we also have feature control here. So if you're making individual copies for students, you also, for that assignment, can pick which tools you want them to have, or maybe you don't want them to have. So that's an option.
Once they make that decision, though, is it permanent for the life of that assignment?
No, hold on. You know what I love? We're doing all kinds of pivoting right now. And this is my type of session. So thank you all for like the questions, the feedback, all that good stuff. So let me go into just one assignment that I pushed out. I don't know. Let's do a science one. You know what? Do it this way. Okay. So imagine it's already pushed out. I need to find some, I don't know. I'm gonna find this one. Where's my Albert Einstein? That's under, there we go. I just want one that's like polished up for you. So when you come in, once it's assigned, it's going to look like this, right? All you have to do as a teacher, just hit open with Kami. Your students will have the same button once they see it in Google Classroom as well. But what you get as a teacher is a way different party than what the students get, because you get all the student work. It's loading right now. Come on. So you'll see like I have one student here and then the next student here. I'm able to see who's turned in work. You're able to see annotations live. Now, that's not why I came here. I came here to actually answer your question. But while we're here, I just want you to know that this is called Class View for you to look at all the student work. If you come up here to Class View at the top, there's a little icon. It's like 3 lines and 3 dots. You can manage the assignment, and it gives you feature control to change those features live. Like maybe you didn't give them the dictionary tool, but then you're like, wait, they low-key need the dictionary tool, right? And so you can manipulate it, turn on, turn off, select OK, and then all of those changes will happen instantly for your students. Yep.
Would you prefer other random questions at the end of the session or as we go?
Oh, I don't care. If you have questions as they come, like we're kind of getting off of the Jigsaw thing, but I do think that the questions you are asking, others are asking, right? Like at least in their mind. So if you do have stuff, feel free.
One more then. It is related to the Jigsaw. So when I have used Kami in the past, I start with a Google slide, and I in a Google slide you can create bookmarks, which are hyperlinks. And so on my first slide, students can click on a hyperlink, and then they jump down to Monday's assignment, and they jump down to Tuesday's assignment, and they jump down to Wednesday's, which is cool. I'm wondering, I'm assuming probably they don't do it, but does Kami ever take their PDF versions, like this really pretty Freyer model, and do they allow me to access that as a Google slide? Because I don't know right now how to add a hyperlink that jumps from slide 1 to slide, like Thursday.
Sure. Don't reinvent the wheel. And here's what I mean. If you already have things like that built out in Google Slides, so notice that I have hyperlinks here. I hyperlink your sign-in, your sign-in form. We're going to do your feedback form. When you move it into Kami, all of the hyperlinks carry over. So if you do have those bookmarks, it will carry you over into the appropriate place within that document. So if you already have it in slides, move it over. All hyperlinks carry over into Kami.
But if I want a new Kami, like one of their new templates, I cannot jump from, so you use like the split and merge tool. If I were doing that, is there a way for me to take slide number 1 and link it to slide 17, or basically Monday, Tuesday throughout the week?
That's a really good question. I've never tried that where on the Google side, it's set up a certain way, but then adding additional pages in split and merge then changes the order of pages. I've never tried that. I can later on today and get back to you. But like, I'm not, it's going to take you somewhere, but I don't know how it's going to behave. One consideration, if you're trying to like build something out like that, in the library, we do have notebooks, but you want to pick the right one. So see how this one over here, it says digital notebooks with linked tabs. So the tabs have already been linked for you. So I can click on this tab, boom, it takes me to that part of the notebook, and you can add stuff, and you can take this to split and merge and like maybe replace it with a different page with this page, or add stuff to this. And this will work for you if you're trying to like get them to the right area of the notebook. And then you can do like, you know, whoop, let's go. Right. And so that is another option if you care to check that out as well. Hey, Elizabeth.
Okay, random question. Can you show me right here on this notebook, how could I make that so now the notes can't be moved? Like, so if I put a document, a PDF document into this page, how can the students not go and mess with that? How do I freeze it before I give it to the students?
Cool. Let me find,
Sorry for this.
Let me find, you know what? What am I doing? I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I'm going to go to my drive. Oh, and don't feel bad. I want to make sure that you walk away with like, boom, Steve gave me what I needed, right? And even if this is, if we don't cover that much of the jigsaw, book me again. Like this doesn't have to be a one and done thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can, yeah, I'm going to take a picture of this, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to go, boom. Okay. So here's the problem with what I'm doing here. I'm putting it in the notebook. Yay. But once you assign this in Classroom, any annotations you add, the students then become owners of that annotation. But here's what's cool. And I don't believe this feature's on for you. So if you like this feature, let me know. I'm good friends with Jen Rogers. I will text Jen and be like, hey, we need to get this on. I love this feature. So what you can do is you can come up and see where like you have like the arrow pointing down. That's the download. That's where you export things. But when I want to export, this feature is behind a flag. That's a fancy engineer term, meaning that's not available for everyone. It's like behind a wall, basically. But I can turn it on for your district where you can select curriculum mode. When you select curriculum mode, you can retitle it here. I'm going to hit export. It downloads a different version of the same file. And it's a notebook, so it's going to take a little longer. So basically what it's going to do, it's going to flatten or freeze any annotations that you've added without hindering things that you don't want flattened, like the link tabs.
So then students can't manipulate that worksheet now.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Correct.
And
okay. Good.
Oh, I was going to say, so we might have to ask for that feature because I just think that this would be good to build out as like a weekly notebook. It's just, I would want to put stuff in there and then not have students delete what I put in there.
Right.
Just to clarify though, without curriculum mode, if you assign it in Google Classroom, students, they can't delete what I've already added, correct?
No, they can. That's the problem.
Oh, they can.
That's the can. So, let me download this here. So what happens is once you assign it and make copies for every student, it's their copy now. They become the owners of those new annotations. But if you do it curriculum mode, I forget what tab we put this in. Did not carry over. That's curious. Just curious one. Maybe I clicked on the wrong thing. Oh, I may not have selected that. So yeah, so when you put it in curriculum mode, then yeah, they won't be able to manipulate it, and it does get flattened, and it even makes comments. So remember how I showed you, jump back over, no, where's the for world thing? Oh, that's why. So see how this is the Cami comment, but notice like you can't delete it. It's because I took this page, this document, and I ran it through curriculum mode. So they don't even play with me, Cami, not today. Something's wonky with curriculum mode right now. This is not showing up. I'm going to post this up to the engineers. But this right here, to clarify, boom, they can't delete. They can't comment. It doesn't even show who, like the name of who made that comment. And then it flattens text, but it won't flatten things like YouTube videos, links, stuff of that nature. Ooh, we're going down a rabbit hole, but that's okay. That's okay. Any other questions, comments? You can go ahead and pivot back into the 4 worlds here. Just want to make sure you all are okay though. And then how are we doing on time? Yeah. Like I said, I did not want to go a full 2 hours. So let's kind of get into like more into what the 4 worlds does, or perhaps the strategy of it. So we do have various people adding, and so they're dropping in their ideas. Now, sometimes students, they need to, and right now, like, you're all using the text box and that's fine, but this is collaborative, right? And so students they have a hard time like typing things out. Like they know what they want to say, but they don't know how to get it out there. I would encourage you to really encourage your students to be like, hey, you can use the voice comment and like your peer can hear you and have it documented, regardless if they're in the room or if they're on the moon. We now have access to this document regardless of time or place, right? And just the ability to like talk out concepts, especially when content gets more nuanced, right? Where it gets more challenging. There's like a lot of gray area in between. It's a great way to use Kami. Okay, so the next part though of this within the 4 worlds is you imagine you've dropped in all of your ideas. So you initially started independently, like I'm going to become the owner of the political world for this concept, and the next person economic, cultural, social. But here's where it gets challenging is now I have students then start to talk amongst each other, and they use the Kami tools to draw lines. It doesn't have to be perfect arrows like this, but draw lines, making connections from their own ideas across a different world to someone else's idea. So for example, with this one, with respect to literacy, like we have, funding disparities. Yes, preach. Absolutely. That is a problem. And that's how literacy gets, that's how literacy is impacting the political world. That's how the political world is impacting the literacy. But then I would go over and see what's going on across my world, and says what's going on across the world is access to reading. There is a connection here between the funding component and access. And I would even underline access. So then I would have, and you can't do this here because we're all remote, right? But imagine if you have students in the same room, they're all, four desks in the same group. Then they start talking. They're like, wait, how does funding impact what I have? And they start having organically higher level thinking. Think about the DOK. Think about, it's so hard sometimes getting students with different backgrounds, different, walks of life, different, cultural elements, like coming in and being able to collaborate and think critically. This helps that process. And I've seen my students do the 4 worlds, and I'm walking by and they're having more insightful conversations than sometimes what I hear come out of adults, especially on social media. And so it does provide, it fosters a good environment for students to have. That's where the learning takes place with all this. And when there's a good conversation that happens, I can quickly, if I'm on the same document and they're right next to me, I can record a voice comment because I want that good idea that student is making to be recorded and then documented. And I'll put the dot for the comment right in the middle, because then that empowers our learners, right? We're like, hey, can you say that one more time? Can I record this? They're like, yeah, sure. And then now, like, I can have someone else from a different group go and observe the powerful messaging that is happening in their own classroom. So to me, this is huge with respect to like how Kami fits into all this. So what I'd like you to do with the people that have contributed to this document here, go back and try to like look at what you have and try to draw a line, maybe circle or underline, like maybe a word or two or a phrase, and draw a line and connect that across your world. Just curious what you all come up with. Give you a moment. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So before I kind of show you what I would do next, right? So by the way, depending on how much time you have, so I taught high school. If we did the 4 worlds, if we did a jigsaw, it's taking the whole class period. It's feeling like you're going bell to bell. Oof. If you get observed by an admin, if you can like practice this and kind of get this down, boom, my admin be leaving me alone. Like they're like, cool, you're touching so many boxes here, right? And so one thing I do want to share with you. So what I used to do is I just made little cards. Let me jump back over here. I made little cards, like hopefully you can see it, that has the same language: social leader, cultural, political. And then I would leave them on their desk and just hand them out really quick. And here's the thing. So that way they have a different world each time because it gets randomized, right? And so they're doing it slightly different depending, with the new concept. I would do this like once every other week. You don't want to do it like all the time, but I think having the cards, however you're chunking this out initially, I think it's good to have cards, to have that, like tangible, like, oh, this is what I have, right? And I'll show you why that's important in a sec. But in this next stage here, we've made this connection. Now, then what I do is you can do a few different things. If you're in the room, think about no tech, low tech, high tech, right? I would step away and be like, let's do no tech. Like stand and deliver, like be like, hey, I would ask like, oh, Elizabeth, not that I'm not asking you to do this in real life. I'm just as an example, I'd be like, Elizabeth, you have a connection here between innovation and different beliefs. What'd you guys talk about? Share it out, right? And the whole class is going to listen. So remember when we went back into the Jigsaw, kind of like taking notes originally, we talked about collaboration, breaking up the task, student-centeredness, and then that share out, right? The share out for the whole group. And what's powerful about that is that when you do the share out, I can also ask Elizabeth while she's sharing out to create that voice comment, to document that finding, that inquiry. And since this is a collaborative environment, everybody now has access to that to refer back to it later. Now, referring back to it later, you have to purposefully have students refer back to it, maybe build upon this in a different way. Let's say, maybe as a review, maybe to build a project, whatever the case is, right? So there always has to be purpose throughout. The other thing too is if you do have a group that's doing good work, maybe you're having them drop comments to showcase like, hey, these are the connections. What you can do is have students have the team lead. If you have a team lead, drop in a video comment to share out of all of this, across all four worlds, what is the most significant thing? What stood out to you? What resonated with you? And have students share that out. And that team lead can do it. Or one person can make a voice comment and then they all get on screen. My students used to love doing that. And now that gets stored and saved for them, again, for the whole group. And I am a firm believer that we have done some harm over the course of many years of having students learn in silos, in isolation, and then also having them learn in a way that it fits every single learner in the exact same box, as if they were the exact same people, like almost like clones, right? Sorry, big Star Wars fan. But this really gets into the personalized customization of learning. They're using their own insight, their own prior knowledge, their own inquiry to dive into the content that you want. And it can still be standard aligned, right? You're still like the facilitator of like what it is they're diving into. And then being able for them to talk it out and showcase their learning, their understanding, their thoughts, their passion, how they see fit. Both within the content with the pedagogy, but also with the technology of how they share that out through video, through voice, right? Through text, how it is you want them to voice that out. Before we go on or pivot or anything like that, questions, thoughts, anything that you have, this would be a good time to do that. Sweet. We're gonna kind of go back to the cards just for a moment. Oops, I dropped something. With the cards, something that if you did have more class time, once you get to this point, something you can do. So everyone has a card. So the thing about that could be powerful with Jigsaw is that if you have them in their initial groups, you can have, I used to put like my own little piece of paper on one of the walls, be like, hey, see where it says political world on the wall? Like I would have it like just written. I'd be like, I want all political leaders to meet on that side of the room. And then all economic. So then you quickly regroup them and they're in a larger group. And then they share out their ideas that they talked about in their group. And it's really easy to be like, hey, all political meet together, all cultural meet together. do a chat, do a share out. And again, this gets them away from the computer too. So this idea of like, you know, no tech, low tech, high tech, because it doesn't have to be like, I never wanted my students to be just staring at the screen independently for, you know, bell to bell, right? For 50 minutes, even for 30 minutes. Jigsaw helps solve that by, you know, getting them moving, getting them up, bringing them back, having that full discussion. So I did want to share that as well. Okay. In terms of time, just do a few like last minute, like housekeeping. No, let's talk about Iron Chef. If you're familiar at all with Edu protocols, here, go ahead and drop this in the chat. So Edu protocols, if you've not been, you know, exposed to it, it's essentially what I'm talking about here. John and Marlena, they're good friends of mine. I do collaborate with them in the area of Jigsaw, and we've actually started working together, like more on the Cami side. Tisha Richmond is also involved with this. Tisha is also a really good friend of mine. There are books. I don't get any money on this, but I'm only showing this to you because they have resources, is what I'm telling you. The other thing, and again, the Edu protocols, it basically is Jigsaw, right? That's basically what it is. If you go to the Cami library and you do a search here, if you look up Edu protocols, we now have Edu protocols in the Cami library, which again, you have different ways to Jigsaw depending on what you're doing and what you teach. So we have math reps, K through 3. We have sentence parts. We have 8 parts of speech, cyber sandwich, and you can explore these and like you kind of read and like, okay, what is it? Kind of gives you the instructions, multiple slides, use split and merge, right? And so you can read each one. There is a Cami webinar on these templates that's coming up. I can email that out to you. And let me see if I can find this for you. Oh, here we go. I will drop this in the chat. I'm not the full lead on this webinar, but I will certainly be there. Like I'll be on camera. And so let me drop this in here. So you can see kind of all of our webinars that we're doing right now, but this one, the Back to School with Edu Protocols, the authors of Edu Protocols will be there, and we're having a very, very wonderful partnership. And so it will be showcasing all of these Jigsaw type of templates, approaches, and how you can use them. And we try to really diversify it across all the grade levels. And I won't show this to you now, but we do have Iron Chef in here. Iron Chef is another way to use the Jigsaw, and you can have your own copy of this. You can just download it if you wish. And so this one's on dad jokes, worst dad jokes. But think about different concepts. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Think about different concepts that you can put 4 students in a group. You're like, you need to insert an image, insert a quote. What are the secret ingredients to this concept? Like what makes this concept a concept? What makes it significant? And then their big takeaways. I don't want to give you any more. I do realize that there's probably been a lot of information. Again, I don't want to do the full 2 hours. What I will do is I will stop a recording